Hello, everybody, and welcome to Jasper's Laboratory. So the 11th episode in this series. It's been kind of a journey. There have been some gaps in the show, but I think we are on the right path anyway. We started off this series with me explaining how you can easily start up a game without doing too much prep. We did a bit about foreshadowing and how you can build a goblin cavern to a smaller or bigger degree, and we made a monster together. And then I was thinking, okay, we've done this. We've done it like this now, and now I really want to make a deep dive into how I actually prep a game, because I'm not a dungeon master that takes the easy approach, so to say. I make it really difficult for myself, but I kind of like that as well, because things can be start to become really complicated. Oh, dang. Now I see that there is the green bar at the bottom of my screen. That frustrates me somewhat. Anyway, I can't do anything about that now. So in this previous session, I started to talk about my Dramor campaign, because I think that's a great example where I have applied a lot of the things that I've learned through my years and years of being a dungeon master, and which I can convey to you, my viewers, as a method. Well, you don't have to exactly follow the way I'm doing it, but you can at least understand how you could incorporate the backgrounds of the characters, the features of the characters, in your adventure. Make part of the adventure about that, part about your main villain, then taking hooks from the background to make other plot lines, then understanding the world that you're playing in, to let it all come together in this bigger thing that is an adventure. So I hope you'll enjoy this evening's show. And if you have any questions during the show, please tell me, because that would be very much appreciated. Let's first do some socials. So you have socials. You can see them when you do !socials. Oh, I'm misspelling socials, like that. So please join us on our Discord and everything, on our Twitch and on our YouTube. Follow us, like us, do everything you want, and that will help us out greatly. Then normally we do something about what we are doing next Monday, but we'll be on a kind of a hiatus for a couple of weeks. We will be doing a Talking Void in about 3 weeks. But the next Precipice of Dreams adventure is in 6 weeks, for example. So we'll try to keep to put on a schedule that makes sense. And hopefully we'll see you at our other shows when they start after the summer break, so to say. So that's all I have to say about that. Let's run the intro. Here we go. And we're back. So, last we left off, so to say, let's do it in a kind of a Dungeon Master way, right? We talked about how I have 7 players that are new to the game, who really want to have this experience of playing a game. They did a one-shot with me, and then they wanted to continue, so what I had envisioned to be a thing where I foreshadowed something that I didn't know about what it would really be in the future, and which I already spec'd with some lore because I know my world, and I introduced them into this world through a long introduction where I told them about what was happening. I suddenly had to pick their brains about what they wanted. I had to start to learn how they like to play the game and who they were as in real life individuals. And I had to think of a way to make every session as interesting as possible, because we would only be playing on a monthly basis, and I really wanted to get them all involved in the story. I don't like the light. So that was kind of my mission when I started this campaign, to make it all come together. And the way I did this is by giving them a task to do, which is making a short biography of their characters. And we discussed this. Some came up with a long story, some with a much shorter story. But I think we can, and I kind of summarized what they wanted to be and what their background was. But I described it again, so I'll be showing that soonish. And so I took that input to really start thinking about the whole adventure thing. We had our first session where the cleric from the group got stabbed, and the dagger that was left in his chest had a letter attached to it, which told that this master of coins wanted 2,000 gold pieces from him for earlier gambling debts. A couple of characters suddenly understood that they were involved in this storyline as well, in some manner at least. They had seen people they didn't want to see. For example, the rogue in the party saw the head of the Black Ravens in Dramur, which is a city that we start off this adventure in. And he didn't want to be seen by that guy, because that guy might have given the order to kill his parents. And so the adventure started in a way. To flee the city, they took on a mission by this woman named Johanna Silvershine, if you want to talk in English. And she said that she knew this wizard named Horatio Whittagar, who lived in a village kind of nearby. And he had lost his spellbook to, it was stolen during the night. They found this suspicious already, and I had to think about that. Because to understand what will be happening next, we have to get into what I think is the main quest, the main thing that will happen in this adventure, and kind of the side quests that happen along these lines. And in order to do that, I'll go to the right, to the other stuff. The adventure. So, as you can see here, I made a kind of synopsis of what this adventure will be about. There will be a main plot, there will be subplots, and there will be the world, what's happening in the world. I think the last one is very important to give flavor to everything that people are experiencing. And I could add locations to that as well, because there will be a couple of locations explored at the start of the adventure that will reappear during later chapters or sessions, however you want to call it. And those are the locations that you really have to look at to see it, well, to give a history, so to say, so you know what's happening and what will change in between sessions. To do this, we'll be going over the characters first, and I did a little synopsis of what was driving these, what their motivation is to, go into the world. Failar04 says, sometimes you think of the world you're making as a beautiful brainchild you can never let go, waiting to perfect it every niche, and other times you're just like, screw it, I'm gonna make a cobalt mafia. yeah, that's true. And I think that this world started out as a kind of brain fart. And the thing is, if I didn't have a player party that already started in kind of the zone that this party started in, then I would not have been able to prep in such a fast way with a lot of knowledge that I could explain to them as I did. And thank you, Velar04, for your first chat. Welcome to the stream. Yeah. Because that's the thing. I really want to... this is not starter DM stuff that I'm doing here. And at the same time, it could be starter DM stuff. Because if you are really that Dungeon Master that wants to prep everything, then you'll be very glad you're watching this stream. Because I'm going to make a deep dive. I think I'm going to make a deep dive. When I compare myself to other Dungeon Masters that I know I do a lot of prep. But then other DMs do as well. But they do it in another way. I had this talk with the Precipice of Dreams Dungeon Master, which is a close friend, of course, and we do the show on Mondays. And he said the way I prep is by walking up and down my room, and then an ID will hit me, and I go to the computer and I type it into a Word document, I don't know, maybe an Excel document, I have no idea, in a spreadsheet. And then I start walking again. And lately I saw this cool comic where you saw this uninspired dungeon master going to bed, and then as soon as he hit the pillow, all these ideas started popping into his head, and he couldn't sleep. Well, that's very familiar to me because, I have children now, so I'm tired often. But in these times where I'm not tired, my brain can go on and on during the night with these new ideas that keep coming at me from all different directions. So there's a lot of ways that Dungeon Master gets his ideas, and a lot of ways to work with these ideas and put them on paper, or not even put them on paper. We had a discussion with Allard from Dutch 20, where he said he sometimes doesn't prepare his sessions and he just wings them, and that's the way as well. Which might be screwed. I make a Kobold Mafia, for example. Anyway, so what are the characters that we're having in this party? The first one is Auron, and Auron is a chaotic neutral male tiefling sorcerer, wild magic, and he's an urchin as a background. So Auron is one of the longest backgrounds written. It's 12 pages, I think. Really goes into details about events that happened. And this is kind of a summary of the things that did happen in his youth, so to say, or up to his age right now. So he has a criminal past. His mother was murdered. Father is part of the Umari, which is like a criminal organization. And I think that when he was younger, it was still kind of a fledgling organization, but it grew stronger over time. He had to flee the city because he came to know that his mother's death didn't happen the way it was told to him, and so it was implied that he was going to be thrown into not really a prison, but the Umari were going to do something with him. He exploded with arcane magic, and that's how he discovered his sorcerer features. And he fled from the city. Also, he described a lady in his youth that he was quite fond of. He had a past with the Black Ravens because they were the opposing criminal faction in the city, and he had tried to blackmail them, but that kind of backfired, and that was what started kind of a war between the two factions. And he's lost a lot of friends during his time because of this criminal war that's happening. Also, there was a lot of things to do with shipping of stuff that was beyond his comfort zone, as even as a criminal. So this is kind of his background. What I how I will incorporate this in the adventure is as follows. The Umari will be a recurring organization in the campaign. They will be doing stuff that has to do with the main storyline, but they are kind of unaware of the larger things that are happening. The lady from his background is a very important character. She is in service of the Master of Coins, who is the one who wants to have gold from Victorian, which is another character. She's also the daughter of a priest that that character knows had a bit of a shady background in the previous city. She kind of likes the friend from her youth, namely Aaron. And there's another thing going on with her being under... she's being blackmailed herself, and her father is as well. He has a lot of lost friends, but there are still some alive who still serve the Umari. The Umari have kind of evolved into a bigger guild with a much darker undertone. So that's what I will take from his background. The other thing is that he said something about how his sorcerer abilities came to him at moments of great distress, and he doesn't know why this is the case, and I wanted to do something with that as well. Then you have Bochi. Bochi is the monk of the party. He gave me a very short background, but he lost a friend named Mox, and he's searching for this friend because he has no idea where he did a kind of ritual, but he never returned, and that's why he left the monastery. There might be something up with his father. He doesn't really know, but he thinks that his mother might have come to the monastery because his father is part of a criminal family or something. I will tell you right now, I've thought of a much cooler story about concerning his father. And he was given to the monastery by his mother, and he doesn't really know who his mother is, but he kind of loves the monastery. He grew up there with good friends and good training, and he's kind of a loner. He's got the hermit background, and this in this adventure translates more in the fact that he has a connection to the strange rather than that he is living on top of a mountain or something. Some things are written in the stars and stuff. What I want to take from this background is that his friend will be a very important key figure in progressing part of his story. I want to include stuff. This Amox. Well, no, let's go into the other stuff. His mother did leave him at the monastery. That's true. The father stuff, I'll get to that later. And there is something with his hermit background that I really wanted to explore. And this is that I had to... so there are 7 characters in this campaign, and I had to find a way to make travel interesting. And you can make travel interesting by skipping it, which is not really making it interesting, but making the adventure interesting because there's no travel involved and you get from scene to scene. You can do random encounters that really text the player somewhat because they are in danger or they meet monsters that they would normally not meet. Or you can simply weave one of the backstories into these moments of travel. And that's what I did with Bochi. Whenever they are on the road for a longer time, he's starting to experience visions of this other person. He even gets to see portals that he can go through with his party, and he gets into these events that have something to do with his past, but he doesn't remember them. And then this person is confronting him about how he's changing stuff and he shouldn't do this because that's bad. And he doesn't know what the hell this person is talking about. And this will all accumulate this will get more... this will be more important when he starts the real search for his friend. because he's searching for his friend, but there are 7 characters and all of them want to do something, and sometimes it's just not your turn because you're on your first mission, for example. So this is how I want to incorporate Bochi's character into the adventure and his story IDs. So he gave me a short story, but it will be kind of a large part of the adventure, things happening which are very mysterious. Velar, he's the half-elf ranger, Beast Conclave. I really love the Unearthed Arcana ranger, and I love the Beast Conclave. I think it's really unique how you work with your animal companion as kind of a secondary weapon, which you have some synergy with. It leaves you with only 1 attack after level 4, where other rangers will have 2 attacks, but you get this animal that really does great stuff, and you can resummon him and everything. So the thing here is he looks up to his grandfather, who is a full elf named Ermhar, and Ermhar Alendron, which is the same surname, last name. The last name is the same as his name, Velar Alendron. And this was a guy who went on adventures and did stuff, and he had this cool falcon that he really loved, and Velar wants to have a falcon as well because he loves animals. And the player who plays Velar has a fondness for birds as well. So I really wanted to do something with that. He likes to make friends. He wants to make friends. And I think the way I want to approach this is by letting him know that he is gathering friends around him, namely the party, which is not always an easy thing because there are a lot of different kinds of people in this party. We've seen Bochi, by now he's lawful good. Then you have the chaotic neutral Auron, and here we have he's chaotic good. Let's change that. The chaotic good Velar, and there will be another couple of different alignments in this party that will certainly lead to conflict. And I want him to experience that this is not this is a difficult situation that is being put in, but then when they come together, they can really they are the person that he can really trust to do the right stuff. And he always has a kind of an issue with people he meets only once, where he goes in full frontal friendly, and he doesn't always get the reaction he wants from those people. And I think that's very important to play with that. And he lives in a community where half-elves are somewhat disliked. So he comes from a city called Henesial, which is an elven city that's kind of secluded into this forest. And the country that we are playing in is Verantor, and Verantor's capital is Tornheim, but Tornheim has fallen to this sand sorcerer, which is kind of a very powerful sorcerer that decimated the place, took half of the Verantor's nobility with it, including the royalty, namely the king. And so the country is kind of fallen. And Henesial, the elves of Henesial are kind of seeing this as an opportunity to maybe start their own society again within this forest and forget about Verantor. They are very kind of, how do you say, racist. They don't like anything that's not full elf, and they do allow half elves to live in their community, but they kind of dislike them. And Velar has never experienced this because he had elven ancestry that really loved their family, and he grew up there. But I want him to have the experience that when he comes back, that not everything is as beautiful and as cool as he thought it was when he was still living there. So that's kind of a thing that will happen there as well. Then we have Findal. Findal is the male halfling rogue, chaotic neutral. He's an assassin. he did a lot of shady stuff in Dramour. This is the only person that really came from Dramour, which is the city that the adventure started in. And the adventure is called A Dramour Mystery. So he knows the city quite well. He knows he did something wrong in the past to get the Black Ravens after him. But he doesn't really know what it is that he did. He only knows that it led to his parents' death. And he blames himself for that, but he's also very afraid of the people who did this. And so there's a thing happening there, so to say. And he had to flee the city as well, so he recently returned. But the thing is, I can use him pretty easily to get the people from part of the city, from the one part of the city to the next part of the city. And what I really want to explore is his dynamic with these Black Ravens, his growth as an individual in this city where there are a lot of criminal organizations next to each other. You've got the Black Ravens, you've got the Umari who migrated here, so to say. You've got the Ratters, which is kind of underground criminal organization that deals in stuff but isn't really like black market kind of people. You've got the in-depths who who work in cells, don't really know each other and do a lot of things. You've got the Master of Coins, and you have another organization which I will talk about later. And these organizations kind of divided the city between them, and they all have their thing to do, and they have alliances and the rivalries going on. And things are happening because the city is flooded by newcomers who came from the capital city, and so the streets are full of newcomers, and that makes these guilds thrive. And at the same time, they have to be very careful that the balance doesn't shift. So that's kind of his thing. Also, he has a connection in his background with Auron, which is very interesting. They don't know this of each other because they don't know each other, but in the first few sessions, they already felt a connection in their way of handling things. They're both chaotic neutral, and they like to steal or swindle people. And I really want to make him shine as the rogue of the party. You know, the one who gets things done in situations where traps can be expected and stuff. Really give him his moments, so to say. Gorum is, this is an interesting character. He's the half-orc of the party, barbarian, frenzied berserker. He's a far traveler. He came from a land far away. And his background, he tied it into the little lore I told him about dragons, sand dragons and sand sorcerers in my campaign. He kept it very open-ended, so I could go anyway. I could do what I wanted with it. Sorry, I have to take a sip now because my throat is getting dry. But it really tied into the story. So his story is that they have this. It's not an onyx; it's an obsidian gauntlet. I couldn't come up with the word obsidian. Thank you. Oh, I really dislike the way that Google is doing this now. He knows that this obsidian gauntlet has been passed down from through his family, which is a mark of the tribal leader. He also knows that there's this other symbol that he wears around his neck that has been given by his grandfather, which he doesn't know the name of, but it's the Chalice of the Seventh symbol, which is an adventuring party from long ago. It's very important to him, and he has that on himself. So he's wearing that as he meets the party, and he knows that this obsidian gauntlet is significant. His tribe is nomadic, and he thinks that the why why they travel has something to do with this gauntlet, but he doesn't know what. And one day there's this storm that's coming over a mountain and coming towards their temporary village, and they all start running, and he's the fastest of them all, and the storm barely misses him, and the storm sweeps over his tribe. They get infested by the hate fever, which is a thing that when you have the hate fever, you don't experience anything yourself, but people who don't have the hate fever and see you suddenly hate you and try to kill you. So the few that survive the storm, the sand storm, he kills because the storm missed him, and he sees them, and they are now infested with this hate fever, which comes from sand from the bodies of dragons. Whole different story. And he kills them. So he's got a lot of grief. He doesn't know what's happening. The only thing he knows is that he heard of Tornheim, and that there's a new sand sorcerer there, and he knows that there might be dragons there as well, these sand dragons, and he wants to solve what happened to his tribe, and that's why he goes on a journey. Now this will be one of the main storylines of my adventure. And this is kind of a strange thing. I don't know if it's good evening, welcome to the chat. Well, now suddenly everybody's here. Welcome. Join me. So this is the lore he's digging into is a kind of the lore that's behind my whole campaign. So I thought it was great to include this lore in a way that it became significant in the adventure. And Golrum's background really helped me find a way to incorporate it in a way that was not only interesting for him as a character, but interesting for the whole party, although they might not know in which way it is interesting for the whole party. But we'll get into the main quest later on. Then we have Reudrach. Reudrach is interesting. He joined the session later, or the player who plays him joined the session later, and he told me that he made a mountain dwarf, but he wanted to be a Dwergar. And Reudrach is, when you switch the letters out in a different way, it spells Dwergar. And it's kind of a funny name his parents gave him. And Reudrach's family line is from a mountain range where there's this dwarven hole, named Brentor's Hole. And the dwarves there kind of were decimated by Dwergar who came through the Underdark up into the city and tried to kill everybody, but they managed to pull off a curse from Moradin, the god of the dwarves, and the curse kind of said that as long as there are Dwergar in Brentor's Hole, those that I curse will never become Dwergar again. And so part of the Dwergar that were there were turned into mountain dwarves, and they had their senses shifted somewhat, and they had to flee from the Dwergar brethren, and they became part of society. And there are still Dwergar in Brentor's Hole, so all these dwarves keep appearing as being mountain dwarves. But lately, there might have been a new force that has arrived in Brentor's Hole, and Reudrach, his appearance is starting to shift a bit. He's becoming grayer. He sometimes goes invisible, or he enlarges himself, and that's a thing that's happening. That's of some concern to himself, although he kind of knows the lore from this hall, but is also a concern for his friends. He's a paladin of Paragon. Paragon is the good god. You've got Paragon and Saruman. There's a whole history behind those two as well. And you've got a couple of more gods as well, and goddesses. And Paragon is kind of this good god that really gets involved with his devout followers. And so I can use this god as a kind of guide to how he interacts with the world around him. He lost his parents during the Tornheim event, which I already talked about, when it collapsed due to the Sand Sorcerer. And he's now onto his path of redemption. As Steven says, sounds like an awesome backdrop for Dwagger. Yeah, it is. And I will certainly incorporate a lot of things concerning this background into his experience during the adventure. Then we have the last one, which... and he's lawful good. Then we have the last one, which is Victorian, who is also lawful good. Also is a devout follower of Paragon, but he's a cleric instead of a paladin. He used to be a gambler. His earlier days are all about gambling and losing a lot of money, getting on drugs and stuff, and finally getting swept up by the church, who gave him a purpose. He still... he can't... he's been an addict, so to say, to both substances and gambling, and this haunts him to this day. And I started off the adventure with him being stabbed by a rogue with a letter attached to him that he owns the Master of Coins 2,000 gold pieces, and that's so that started the whole adventure. So it starts off with him being the main character, kind of. He knows the clergy from Tornheim. He knows that some of them went to Dramor to be based there. He knows the father of the girl who Auron really likes from his youth, and who's being blackmailed to do stuff. He knows him as a shady character and doesn't trust him. And he thinks there's a connection there, which players often do if you give them 2 snippets of information. As Steven says, do you do alignment, and what kind of alignment will Redrag be? Well, Redrag is lawful good. Wait, I'm still on the right screen, right? Yeah, I'm on the right screen. Okay. So we've got 3 lawful good characters, 1 chaotic good character, 1 neutral good character, and 2 chaotic neutral characters. And this leads to conflict within the party. A lot of conflict. And not always in the way you expect, but yeah. So there's a thing that... yeah. So now I've talked about the people. I also want to talk about the people or the characters. I also want to talk about the people who play them, because I think this is very, very important at your table. So when we get back to Auron, Auron's player loves to do conversations. He loves the subtle things that happen in an adventure. He doesn't like the combat that much. He wants to know what's happening behind the scenes. He's plotting. He's and he likes to be heard with a you in a way, and not as a kind of punishment, but he knows that he has a dark past. He wants to kind of outgrow this during his adventure, and he wants to have a lot of intricate social stuff happening to him. It has to do with his the Umari that he's been a part of and stuff, and yeah. So there's a lot of things, and that's what he really likes. Bochi is quite a dominant player. He has respect for everybody at the table, but Bochi is someone. The player who plays Bochi is someone who is always has an opinion, and he likes to express his opinion at the table. So in order to satisfy him during the adventure, I'm going to give him his moments to shine, but I'm also I'm also going to try to include him in kind of mystery that only he knows is happening, so that when stuff happens at the table, he's kind of in on it. So that even if he's not the main character at the table, he kind of gets what's happening and can give me a wink now and again. So he stays involved in the adventure. Velar's player is one when it comes to the moments where he wants to shine. He wants them to be about him, but he can sit back as well. He likes the combat encounters. He likes to have a nice evening with his friends, so it doesn't always have to revolve around him. And at the end of the evening, if he had a nice evening with friends, it's okay for him. He wants me to do stuff with birds, and so I'm doing stuff with birds with him. He will get an animal companion, which is a falcon, which has a special history. I don't have to involve him every session, but I have to be certain that he keeps understanding what's happening. And luckily, the party does this as well. They have a lot of quite short conversations for Dungeons and Dragons party, actually, where they discuss what's happening and they decide what they are going to do next, and then that's it. So, and that for that, I really like this party in that way. They keep it short. Vindal, his player is kind of laid back. He observes what's happening at the table. He cannot always be at the table as well. He wants his moment. When he has his moment to shine, he wants my attention, and I can give it to him. And he likes to communicate with me through WhatsApp about things he's thinking about during the game and opportunities he sees. And he gets distressed when he doesn't get his time. So I have to be certain that it fits in. But he doesn't need it every session. He just needs it when the context of the adventure really comes his way. Herr Steven says, I also don't know. Kind of like me, says Herr Steven. I also don't know what we're doing half of the time. So Velar does know what he's doing almost all of the time, but he does get his sense of adventure from the whole evening rather than only the adventure. And in that case, it's kind of like you. He does a lot less jokes, though. Gorum, his player, is really laid back. I think he doesn't necessarily have a problem role-playing, but he really had to get into it during the first few sessions. He's the one who kept speaking in a he form the longest instead of an I form. I don't mind that at all. You can do it that way if you want. But it says something about the player. He really thought out his background pretty well. He's kind of the guy who keeps notes and tries to overlap these notes and come up with what's really happening. He's about short conversations that have meaning. And because I do a lot of... a large part of the adventure is about his background in a sense. I can always keep him drawn in by the adventure. Then we have Reudrach. He's kind of the silent player who sometimes you have the idea that he's not really paying attention, but when he is not paying attention, he's literally searching for stuff about his background, editing his sheet to make it more optimal, trying to understand from what I'm saying from the documents that I've provided, searching for maps, really paying attention about what's happening with the others at the table, and he rarely takes his own moment in the adventure, and so I have to give these moments to him. In one of the last sessions, he kind of said, can we finally go do my thing, because we've done everybody else's thing, and I think it's time for my thing, but we're almost rolling into other things again. So I have to really pay attention that he is not neglected in a sense. I don't think he really is, but and he can speak up for himself. He's a good speaker, so to say, but you have to take into consideration that he's the player who likes to listen about at what is happening at the table. Then you have Victorian, who is a kind of has two sides to him. He's got the side, the player, right? He's got the side where he's really the one who talks for the party. He makes the long role-playing speeches. He really likes to make a deep dive into the role-playing part and make it almost dramatic, really not only role-playing, but really doing theater. And then there's the other part of him that tries to find the connection and tries to see the whole picture, and gets a bit frustrated when he gets the sense that things aren't connected. Why did we do that in session 1 and we never came back to that part, like that? And I really had to draw him back in at some points, where I told him, well, start connecting the dots. You've experienced this in this case and that in that case. How could they be connected? And I actually did a kind of a vision. I gave him a vision at a logical point in the adventure. They were with kind of oracle kind of lady. And in this vision, he saw something that connected to that first session, but should happen in the future. And that really drew him back in. Also, he likes drama. So those are my 7 players that I have to work with. How do I organize this stuff? I can show you. So part of this is in Dutch, part of it is in English, but this is the document that I use as a kind of backbone for my adventure. It has a couple of things that I do in there. Man, I missed the Jasper adventures. You do? Well, thank you. I missed them as well, but I don't know how to continue them when we're doing all the Voidcast stuff. So this is my information page. Here's something in Dutch, which some of you might not be able to read. But it's the structure of the game, how I planned it. I wanted to do some acts and get things done in Act 1, Act 2, Act 3 and stuff, and spread them across a certain amount of years. And, but things always go differently than you wanted. Then here's my timeline. It starts in the year 3188, and then it goes to 27 because this year is also year 0 from a new count, and then it goes all the way up to the year 1564, where the adventure starts. This isn't a document that I prepared before I started the adventure. It's a document that is growing as I plan what's happening in the adventure. But there are a couple of things that are very important. Hello, Swedenborgs. Don't know who it is, but probably joined the stream right now. So this part is about the sand dragons and the birth of a new god. And then here we have the part where there are all these sorcerers that are doing stuff. And then here you see the first mentions of Ermahar Elendron, and he's the grandfather of Velar. And he was in an adventuring group with Marhook, who's the who's a great grandfather of Gorum in this case. And he had 2 children which have to do with the prime storytelling. Then stuff happens. Here they are born, and the big bad guy is interwoven into this piece as well. Let me see where that starts. I think I started it here with... Oh yeah, here. He's born in year 1499 and is now 1564, so he's 65 years old, but he's kind of a half demon figure. So then I noted down the ages of my players, so I could calculate when they were born, what happened in those years, which month it is, so I can keep track of their birthdays if it ever comes to that. Then I have some of important non-playing characters that are attached to this the birth years of them. Then I've got a lot about factions that are part of the background. And then I have the big bad guy listed first. I wrote this down in Dutch, you can probably not read it. But the bad guy is Orson Bone Marrow. And I really wanted to flesh him out because I wanted to know what drives him. And what drives him is a lot of neglect, a lot of not being able to do what he wants. He has a dark streak because of his heritage, and that took over at a certain point in time. And so I wrote this down. I haven't written everything down, as you can see here, but I know what happened in those times. This is a part where I describe his interaction with the party, what's important of him when he does what to interact with the party. He works with Melazil, a barbed devil. He works with Raynor, a doppelganger, and he works with Johanna Silvershine, who is a cleric to Saruman, which is the bad guy, the bad god from my campaign. Then I've got other things listed. I've got some hooks for my characters that I described here. Gollum gets a bit of special attention concerning the Obsidian Gauntlet, the Challenge of the Seven, which is the adventuring group that his forefather ran. And then there's this Ermhar Elendron is in this party, and he's still alive because he's an elf, because this party was long ago. And then there's Horatio Wittegar's party, which is their main quest hub giver, but there's a lot of things to do about him, and he's in that party as well. So there's a connection with their current quest giver and Brenter's Hall again, because he died there. Ermhar died in Brenter's Hall, so there's a connection there with Reudrach, but there's a connection there as well with Valar, because it's his forefather, and he died there, and he left a cool bow there, which that character really wants. And there will be a connection with Victorian, because the Master of Coin now resides in that hall. And there will be a connection with Gollum, because the location of his sister tribe that went into the Feywild, that location is stored in a vault in that place. But this Ermhar connects the two parties as well, so he can in that other party there was another elf named Hestia, and she's alive as well, and she can tell stuff about both Ermhar and the party that Marhook was in, so the great grandfather of Gollum. And so when they meet her, she can connect a lot of dots. So this is why I fleshed out these parties, and I just wrote down the group name, kind of what they were and stuff in shorthand. But I have that. The rest of it is in my head. Steven says, I thought you did most of this stuff from your mind. Yeah, well, I do. But I'm getting a bit older, and I have started to realize that I can't always keep everything in my mind, so I have to write stuff down these days. There's a chat running in the background that's annoying me. but we'll see if that keeps bothering me or not. Oh, not like that. Are we still here? Yes, we're still here. So that's how I keep track of these people. The other thing I did is that I kind of divided some of what might happen to these characters in like at what level it might occur. So, for example, the Obsidian Gauntlet I thought would be in Act 2 when they're around level 8 and 9. Something would be happening with the Obsidian Gauntlet. So the adventure has... why is... One sec, I have to mute this, but I don't know which one I have to mute, so I'm going to mute them all. Okay, I think this was the one. We'll see. For example, and other things is an eigen valk, which means his own falcon. I knew that he would take the Beast Conclave at level 3, and so I wanted to do something with his falcon at that level. Sorry, inviting the party to the chat. Yeah, no, don't do that. And then you see there's something about Armhar here that will be taking place at about level 10 or 11. They are level 9 now, and I think this will actually happen at around that level because they are now going to Branter's Hall. Then Bochi is an interesting one. Amox is his friend. I thought that would be happening at level 9 or 10, but it happened at level 7. And so I had to do something. What's happening? Why? And I don't see which one is actually giving me the signals, which is really frustrating, but because then I can't mute. Can I mute the whole of Discord? I don't know. Huh. Oh, it's WhatsApp. Oh, okay. Clickety click. There we go. Thank you. Just ignore it. Yeah, I don't know if it's you can hear it on stream, but I can hear it. So those are a couple of things that how I organize my adventure. But this all goes up to about level 10. And then for level 10 to level 20, I also made a kind of sheet. And okay, so I never plan this far ahead. But because we only play once a month and I really want to give everybody the right amount of attention, I do kind of think about things that would happen at certain levels. Which I can progress in time or delay. That doesn't really matter. But so I have a kind of backbone for my adventure. Most of the times my adventures go sideways and a lot of other things happen. So it's not that I want this to happen as a dungeon master. Between railroading and sandboxing, you kind of need both as a dungeon master, because only having a sandbox and sending them all over the place because stuff happens can be a fun adventure. But if you really want to include stuff that's happening from a big bad evil guy kind of view, then you really have to incorporate that part of the adventure. So now I can come back to the first page that I wrote down, and we can kind of fill this in. I will not be filling it in live. I will be doing it after the show, or at least before the next show. So what's happening? What's happening in the world? Let's first discuss this. What's happening in the world is that this there are a couple of things going on. Tornheim, the capital, has fallen and people are migrating, and one of the places that they are migrating to is Dramur, which is the city which is at the coast. And so this city is overpopulated and a lot of adventurers coming together there, and they really have to maintain the balance because the lord of the city has also died in the capital, but his wife is still alive, and she's now controlling the city, Julia of Dramour. And she has all these advisors that some of them like her, some of them don't. There's a lot of things to explore there. The criminal organizations are trying to get a foothold because they see weakness, not specifically in her, but in the moment of political strife. Nobody knows what the capital is at the moment. The elves want to take advantage of this, and that's the backdrop of the adventure. Now, what will be the main plot? The main plot will be this guy named Orson Bone Marrow. I just showed him to you in my kind of a big adventure format, and it's really an ascension story in a sense. He wants to be kind of a lich, but the thing is, he doesn't really have anything going for him that would make him a cool lich. So he has to get power from other stuff, and he's done a lot of things to progress his form so that he can... is it a picture of Awesome Bone Marrow? Orison Bone Marrow, but there's no picture. No, it was just words, Herr Stevens. So he's done a lot of things to get to a point where he can at least become kind of a powerful undead type. Momentarily, he's an incorporeal entity that takes over bodies. And the most recent body that he's taken over is that of Horatio Whittaker, which is the quest giver to the party. And he's an old wizard. He's in his 90s, I think. And he's a diviner. And Orson really liked this because he can use the features of his host body to help him with getting information. And then the diviner is a great kind of wizard to take over to gain more information about what's happening in the world. He's after a few items. For example, he know that the Sand Sorcerer Warmaul died in Tornheim hundreds of years ago, and that he had these obsidian gauntlets that he really wants to acquire because they give power to the ones who wear it. I'm not actually quite sure yet what kind of power it really matters to him, but that doesn't matter because we are not at that point in the adventure yet. He also wants to have the Mirror of Opposition, which is a mirror that the Mirror of Transition, which is a mirror that with which you can manipulate time, and he wants to correct some stuff in his past and help him organize his future. But he has found this Mirror of Transition, but the monks who guarded it said it's not your turn yet. It will be given to you by someone who will explain his story to you. Something like that. Also, I have not written this down. This is the concept that I have behind this Mirror of Transition, and the exact words aren't that important because he will never say them to the party, but he knows what they imply, and so, or at least he will know what they imply once he meets the party. His plot is, what he wants to do is he wants to become kind of immortal, undead, demon-like entity. Doesn't exactly have to be a lich, but very powerful so that he can amass a lot of followers and really start being an asshole. and it's all driven by revenge and anger and his demonic side playing up because, as I said, he's a Cambion, which is kind of a half fiend, but I modified him a lot to be more much darker entity, so to say. And he doesn't really fit into this world of demons and devils. He doesn't fit in the mortal realm. Tieflings have kind of been accepted, but he has larger horns, he has wings, and he didn't get accepted by society, even though he wanted to study magic. So he did everything to be able to do that, but then he didn't get accepted anyway. And so, it's... when you see these trailers about... honest trailers, for example, and you hear the voiceover, wait, he's doing this because he didn't get accepted into the academy? Bollocks, get over it or stuff. But then you think of a guy named, what's the name of the guy who started World War II? And you think, well, it might not be one thing that happened to him, but it might have started the disagreement with society might have started somewhere, so to say, right? And this has he came in contact with the wrong kind of group. One of them was Johanna Silverstein, who who is a priestess of the bad god Saruman, and Saruman has taken an interest because he can see that this person has potential. He's trying to do the most weird things to amass power, and Johanna, he has kind of sent Johanna to support him, keep an eye on him, and Johanna has kind of dedicated a large part of her life to assisting Orison, and she likes it, and she likes him. But then he is also got the attention of a barbed demon who is in it for the chaos, and who's doing stuff in Dramur underground, which is really bad. And then you have a doppelganger who he kind of saved from social disaster, who is now loyal to him and is amassing power in the political layers of Dramur. They've met him, but they don't know who he is yet. Or she, in this case, can be who they are. So that's kind of the main plot, his ascension. But he needs, as you might have noticed, I talked about the Obsidian Gauntlets, I talked about this Mirror of Transition, and especially for both of them, he needs Gorum. So Gorum is on his quest to find out what happened, why things happened to his tribe. And so, that happened. But how does he come in contact with this party? Well, the thing is, he comes in contact with this party because in the one shot that I did, they killed a cleric, which was protecting this vault with zombies. And these zombies are a project of the Barbed Devil, who... Barbed Devil was fallen into chaos, by the way, because normally Barbed Devil is an Batezo or Devil, which is the lawful evil variant, but this one is fallen into chaos. But he's still organizing a lot of these vaults where these zombies are being produced, which during the transcendence of Orison will be invading the city so that the city is distracted and his ascension can actually happen, because he's going to do this under Dramur, because there's another force there already working on another plot which he's going to hijack. When this... So he's a divination wizard right now. When they did this to his vault, he scried on them, and he saw this party interrupting... the thing that was happening there. He doesn't know who this party is. The only thing he recognizes his own blood, namely Auron. Auron's real father is this guy, Orison, the big bad guy, and he sees Auron. He recognizes that this is one of his offspring, because he's been going around, so to say, in as a real bastard. He's taking on the shape of these innocent women's men, and getting children with them. And he did this with the mother of Auron. And but this child is successful. He's gotten magical abilities, namely his sorcerer abilities, and so he's interested in this person. And so he makes up a plan to get them to him through Johanna Silverschijn, who goes to Dramour and invites them to his wizard tower, where he will give them the quest to get back his spellbook, which has been stolen. When they get there and they get to speak with him, he notices the symbol around Golrum's neck, which is the Cherish of the Seven, which is a group he knows because that is the group that got the Obsidian Gauntlets taken away from this sand sorcerer named Wormhole. And so he now has an additional connection. He suddenly also understands that this person wants to try to solve something in his past, and he suddenly understands that the mirror of transition first has to go to this person before it comes to him. He wants to guide his son towards a better future, so to say. So that's happening. He's interested in Bochi because there's something temporal going on there. He hears that Phalar's grandfather is Armhar, and his current host has been in a party with Armhar. So that's a great connection to build upon that. He knows about... he starts researching stuff as well for during the progression of the adventure, and comes to know that things are happening in Brentor's Hall, and Reudrach is interested in Brentor's Hall, as is Victorian, because of the Master of Coins resides there. And then Findal is not really part of this hook, but he's but he likes him anyway because he's kind of on the outskirts of the party, as is Auron as well. And so that's how the main plot really ties into all these backstories. And from there, we will be going into session 2. So last time I talked about how I got from a one-shot to getting the party together, to getting them invited on their first quest. This session I've discussed about what I wanted to do with all the characters, what I want to do with all the players, what the big bad guy is of the adventure, and how that ties into these backgrounds, and how it will forward the plot during all the levels that they will be having. And I'm watching the time, and I realize that if I go into the subplots that are happening, that I will be going on for a long time. So we'll be doing those next time. So next time I will be talking about their first mission, why it is so important. I will be talking about the subplots that will be going on that I haven't discussed yet, because I've already discussed a lot of subplots. The first adventure, the first real adventure, and the additional subplots that are happening. So that's up for next time. I hope you liked it, people in chat. Not a lot of questions, except from Herr Steffes in the end. Awesome, thank you. A lot of exposition, and I think that this is all about how I explain how I do this stuff. It's really important to do all this exposition, because that's really what makes up how you plan an adventure. That's all I had to tell you this evening. Can't wait till next time. Thank you so much. I hope it all made sense. I think it did, but it's a lot to take in, and I will be going to discuss the subplots, and will be the first adventure is about an old tower, living tower that was inhabited by a certain guy, which has been taken over by hobgoblins and goblins alike. And I'll tell you why I planned this adventure the way I did. So I think I'm repeating myself a bit there, but who cares, right? TV.